All right. It is 1600 here on the west coast of the United States. Hopefully everyone can hear me and see my screen. I know it's been a long time since I've done a stream. It's been over a month now. If you follow me on Twitter or anything else, you know that I've been pretty busy. I just took my GXPN or GXPen, or I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced, but it's the highest penetration testing cert that SANS has available, and it involves some high end like network style attacks, as well as exploit development, SEH bypass, ROP stuff. Pretty cool stuff, but I've had my head down and in the books for a while. So this one's going to be a relatively short stream, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes or so. It's not a very complex box, but I did want to do a stream as kind of a, getting back into things. My wife and I are going to be at WonderCon this weekend. She has a table, so I'm not going to be able to stream this weekend. So I just wanted to maybe, midweek get something done. So the box we're going to do today is Bank from Hack the Box, and I just did it last night. It's weird. It's got some cool stuff that I'm pretty sure is unintentional, and then it's got some weird stuff that is intentional, and we're gonna we're gonna explore it together, and hopefully learn some new stuff, or at least like witness some neat stuff. And if anybody at any point says, "Huh, I didn't know that," then we succeeded. So let's just dive right into it. So we've got Hack the Box up here. We're gonna look at the retired boxes so that we can pull the IP address. And so we've got, let's see, what are we doing? We're doing Bank. Get with the fucking program here. All right, where'd it go? There it is. It's like right in front of me. Cool. So, okay, so it's 10.10.10.29, and we are not connected to the VPN, so we're gonna open VPN, and we're gonna rook.ovpn. That's gonna get spun up, and we're gonna config here. We got a tunnel address, cool. Okay, so as normal, we're gonna go ahead and make ourselves a bank directory so that we have a working directory to output our tools to. Oh man, I bought a celebration whiskey yesterday to kind of celebrate the certificate and stuff, and it's a Balvenie 17-year double wood. It's Balvenie is my favorite Scotch distillery. I have several ones that I really like, but Balvenie's up there, and man, the Scotch is good. All right. So first things first, we're going to do our normal Nmap. We're going to do all ports, and that -p- is just a shortcut for -p1 through 65535. We're going to output to all formats, and we're going to call this full port. And we're not going to run any scripts against this because we just want to do a quick, quick port scan. So 10.10.10.29, and then, as we often do, we're just going to assume that there's a web server running. And most Hack the Box boxes do, so we'll go ahead and just curl it just to confirm that. And this output shows that there is one. So if you see here, there's a lot of stuff here. Really what this is, if we get up to the top here, you can see it here. It's showing some of the configs. This is the default Apache Ubuntu page. So you can see here, in fact, it says it right here, Apache 2 Ubuntu default page. So we definitely have something running on port 80. So that's cool. We could start running gobuster, and in fact, I did last night when I was doing the box. I immediately started running it while I waited for the Nmap to go. That's going to be a waste of time, as you'll see in a few minutes. We will do some gobustering, so don't you worry. But we're just not going to kick it off quite yet. So, all right. So here's the ports that we have open, and if you notice, we've got SSH we've got port 53 TCP, which is a little weird, and then we have port 80. So for those of you who don't know, or at least don't immediately go, huh, when you see 53 TCP, is remember that DNS is a UDP protocol. It actually operates over UDP, not TCP. So generally, you're not going to see this even when a DNS server is running. What this often indicates, so DNS will switch to TCP if the request and response is over a certain size. I'd have to look up the size, but if it's over a certain size, I think it's a fragmented packet, then it'll switch to TCP. The other big thing that this often indicates, or could indicate, and you'll want to check, is domain transfers, or zone transfers rather. So if you watched my recon video, we talked a little bit about zone transfers, and I showed you how a zone transfer would work, but we didn't do it against a target that allows zone transfers. So this is actually one of the main reasons I wanted to do this box, because I did want to follow up with that recon video and actually show how a domain transfer or a zone transfer works, and actually show one completing successfully. So while we do that, we're going to kick off our other Nmap scan. So we'll go ahead and just manually put in these ports, and we're going to say that we want to do the versioning. We're going to do all default scripts. We're going to output everything, and we'll call this targeted scripts. And then 10, 10, 10, 29. So while that's going, we're going to switch over to our other window here in tmux. Again, I always get questions about this. This is tmux. It's a shell or terminal multiplexer. It allows you to have multiple terminals up at the same time. I would do a video about this, but IPSec has already done an amazing video for tmux, and has actually shown me a couple cool tricks that I really need to implement into my workflow. I will include a link to Nick's video in the comment or in the description once I get this all up and the video VOD is up. So, oh, that already completed. Evidently, I talk way too much. So we'll take a look. It's a pretty recent bind version, or it's not super recent, but it's fairly modern. We also have a HTTP server. We see HTTP or HTTP bank. Resource requested was login.php. So that's interesting, because that's not what we got here, right? So there's a couple things we can do. One is that we can TCP dump while this is running and actually take a look at what this HTTP request looked like, because that's not what we got, and we want to know how it got this. The other thing, and the way that I ended up doing it the other night, we'll do both ways actually, but the way I did it the other night, or last night, was we did this DNS stuff. So if you remember from my recon video, it's dig AXFR is the zone transfer syntax. So what you want to do is we'll do 10, 10, 10, 29 as the server that we're connecting to. This is the DNS server that we're querying. And then we need a domain. And I ran into some trouble here because I stream Hack the Box stuff, but I really only do retired boxes because that's the only stuff I can stream. And so I don't do a lot of Hack the Box, actually. If you look at my score on Hack the Box, it's dreadful. I think I have like the hacker title, like I'm not even one of the pro hackers or anything. Which is true. I'm god awful at this stuff, but you know, you can see that I just don't do this a lot. So I didn't realize this until I was talking to a friend of mine. There's a nomenclature to Hack the Box stuff where the hold on, sorry, somebody just said something in a Discord that I belong to. Let's see. Sorry, somebody called me out. He called out my videos in a Discord that I belong to, and I didn't know that anybody there knew who I was. So, so anyway, so this is the DNS server that we're querying, and then you need a domain name. So there's a nomenclature in Hack the Box that is the boxname.htb as their domain name. And I did not know that for a while, so I got stuck here for a bit. But once I found that out, and I guess, this is a really common thing. So anyways, so now that once I knew that, then we could do this, right? So we're zone transferring the IP, or we're querying this DNS server, and we want all of the stuff from this domain. So we'll go ahead and hit enter here. And here we get back, we've got a CNAME of bank.htb. We already knew that. We got some subdomains of NS, which is just name server. We got a CNAME of www. So this just redirects www to bank.htb. We also have a subdomain of chris.htb. And that's about it. So cool. So now we know that there's these different host names. The other way we can do this is if we do tcpdump, and I'm going to have to remember. So Plushroom says interesting command dig, and it is. It's an incredibly good command. In the Windows world, I don't know if Windows has dig actually, but in the Windows world, when you want to do DNS queries, you always do NS lookup. That seems to be the standard way that Windows people do DNS queries and searches. In the Linux world, you can use NSLOOKUP. NSLOOKUP exists, so you can like NSLOOKUP, and then go like server 10.10.10.29, and then you could. So this is just setting which server we want, right? And then you could look up like bank.htb, and it'll show you like that's the thing. So that's how you look up stuff. Let's see if it doesn't do reverses, but this is how you do it in Windows world. In dig you do it or in Linux you do it in dig. So we do like dig 10.10.10.29, and we want bank.htb. These two commands are the same. They're the same thing. And so you get back here's the bank IP address, and then this is who's responding to it, the ns.bank.htb, and then here's like another record that's available, just more information about it. So yeah, this is a thing. Bank.htb is that's standard stuff, and now I know that. I didn't know that. I'm glad I do, and I'll be a better HTTP player for it, I guess, in the future. So we're going to do tcpdump. Now I need to remember how to tcpdump full packet capture. Let's see. So interface, I knew the size. So you're capturing the full packet, I guess. Is that it? Okay, cool. I thought it was more complex than that for some reason. So we'll do tcpdump, and we're gonna capture from tunnel 0, the interface tunnel 0. So this is the interface that we want. So from here we can capture from ETH1, ETH0, your loop back if you really want to, or ton 0. This is our VPN interface. So tcpdump, we'll go interface ton 0. We're going to size, and we want the full packet size. And then we're going to write out to nmap.pcap. But first, we're going to go into CTF HTTP bank. So this is a neat little syntax that I picked up from somebody a while ago. Hold on, he's asking what we're streaming. So this is a neat little trick that I picked up. So if you're in the middle of typing a command and you realize you need to do something else first, like for instance, I wanted to go here. Granted, I could have went to the front and then done like cd blah blah blah, and then and or colon and then this or whatever. But say I want to do a bunch of stuff first, right? And I don't want to throw away my typing. You can hit Control A to go to the front of your command line. You can also hit Control E to go to the end. these are, you know, pretty awesome to do. Like if you get all the way to the end and then you forgot to do something, you don't have to go like that. So Control A will take you to the beginning, and then you just put a pound sign at front, which comments that out. It works just like in bash scripting, right? I mean, we're in bash, so you comment it out and then hit enter, and then it's in your command history. So as opposed to like getting all the way to the end and then Control C-ing out, that's not in your command history anymore. So if we did like this and Control C and hit up, that's not in your command history. So I like to do the little hashtag thing. It's a neat trick that I picked up. Hopefully it's useful to you. So we will tcpdump. We'll go over here, and this time we're only going to do the port 80 for the Nmap. And we'll do the default scripts, 10, 10, 29. We don't need to output it to anything because we don't care. We just want to see the web requests go through. We just want to see the web requests go through so we know what kind of web request it's making to have gotten that, that bank login page that we didn't see before. I probably could have done the flag to not do the ping beforehand because we know it's up, but it doesn't really matter. It came back quick enough. So we'll cancel out of our TCP dump. We'll open up wireshark to make it easier to look at, and we'll do the nmap.pcap. I got a question. Have I done HTB BART? I have not done BART yet. So, like I said, I've been pretty busy the last month or several. So I'm going to take a look. If it's retired, then I'll take a look at it and maybe do a stream for it. If it's not retired, then I'll take a look at it and stream it later. So we have a bunch of stuff. And we have we have a bunch more than that. We have a bunch of HTTP stuff. So we're going to right-click the first HTTP packet that we see, go to follow, and we're going to follow the HTTP stream here. So two things happen when we follow the stream. One is we get this pop-up that just shows us the request in red and then the reply in blue. And this shows us the all of the headers. It shows us the code for everything. This is very similar to the view that we would get in Burp. And then we can also, if we want, we can only do the reply. We could also only see the request if we want. And this works not just HTTP streams, but also TCP streams as well. Excuse me. So that happened. And then in addition to that, also what happened is it gave us this filter right here, the tcp.stream equals 3. And so one of the things that Wireshark does when it parses a packet capture is it breaks up all the different TCP streams into their own like little chunks. So you can actually see, you know, the SYN, SYNAC, ACK, you know, TCP session initiation. Then you see the report come, or the request come, and then you see all these ACK packets go back and forth. You see the response, and then you see the teardown. So you can do that, and then you can go to the next one. And the problem here for me is that we're actually cycling through each TCP stream, not each HTTP stream. So we could sit here and like go through, and this is basically Nmap doing its scans, right? It's various little requests and stuff. We don't necessarily need to go through every single one of these. We can do something like HTTP, and this will just show us all of the HTTP requests. So we have, let's see here. Let's see. So we have a bunch of, you know, these are all different methods, HTTP methods that it tried to do some stuff. It tried to get the robots to get some more information. It tried to do see if maybe a Git directory was left. which I've seen in the past. You know, somebody develops their website using Git, and then they just publish straight from their dev server, and then don't clean up, you know, the various Git stuff. Let's see what else we got here. Here's a TCP or a just regular HTTP request. There was one where we got login though. Okay, so get login. We're going to follow this. So how did it know to put that in there is what I want to know. So this is interesting. We're discovering this together because I actually didn't notice the login stuff yesterday when I was going through this. I did the dig zone transfer stuff like what we just did, found that HTTP was the director or the domain name. So then I did what we're about to do. I did what you see here, which is I set the HTTP bank.htb as the host, and we'll get into why that's important in a minute. But I'm really curious how it knew to do that. So I feel like there had to have been something back here where it learned that, or maybe property find. Is this? So I don't actually know what that does. So it was already on. Oh, you know what it probably did? You know what it probably did? Did it find out did it enumerate and find out its host name? It did. So it enumerated, found out its host name, and then just from there tried it as the host, as the virtual host. Cool. That's neat that Nmap does that. That's kind of cool. I didn't know that. So that's something cool that we found out together. And maybe you already knew that. Maybe you're just cooler than me. So anyways, that was a neat little detour. Let's see. Dutch Ghost says, is it useful to make a simple vhost brute forcer? I noticed HTTP uses some hostname tricks. So maybe it would be, you know what it would be useful against, and again, since our scope is all legal and ethical stuff, we want to say right out from the beginning, only if our clients ask for this, right? But if your client, if one of your clients is a big web host company that runs multiple sites on a single server, right? Or even if your client just uses these virtual hosts within Apache, for their web servers, it could be useful to do a vhost brute forcer, to try and enumerate some other stuff. What I find more useful often, though, is that if you dump, if you're able to get that zone transfer, or you're able to use some DNS enumeration using, there's like DNS recon, and I think Recon NG has several tools for this, but there's several like recon tools that can help you do this. But if you can enumerate their DNS or do a zone transfer or something crazy like that, then you get all of their domain names anyways, and all of those virtual hosts are going to be domain names. So rather than having to brute force against a web server and light up their logs like a Christmas tree, you can just go that way and have a little bit more targeted effect. Cool. So we have, oh my God, don't look at that. That's all spoilers. Stop. Okay. So we have a domain name. We have a course of action to get something more than just the default, to do the default web page and actually get to the virtual host, right? So now we load up Burp. We're going to bring up, so we're ready to go here. So, okay, let's turn off intercept, and we're going to go to 10.10.10.29. Yeah, so DutchGhost says, so it's really the last option to go for. It'll be quite slow anyways. To me, brute forcing in general is often the last resort. It's not the way I want to do things ever, especially in Capture the Flags. I like to think that the people writing the challenges are trying to teach you something when they write the challenges, and when the answer is brute force, you don't really learn anything except how to use a new brute forcing tool. So I like to think of CTF challenges as a little more elegant and targeted, and sometimes they're not, but most of the times they are. So I generally don't resort to brute force right off the bat. Cool. So we're gonna go here, and if you see, we just see that default Ubuntu page in our. Oops. What's going on here? Why you no work? Hey, there we go. Okay, that page must have been cached from last night. So as you can see here, our default, the host, we're just using the IP address. Browsers by default just grab whatever you put in here as the host. So we can change this. We'll go ahead and send a repeater. And so we'll go ahead and change this to HTTP or bank.htb. And so we mentioned this, I think, at one point, maybe another stream or maybe on Twitter or something. But so I actually have a custom. Is that under MISC? Yeah, I have a custom thing set here. Oh, you know what? It's not in free. Sorry. In my Burp Pro, I have a hotkey set up to Control Enter to send, to basically make the request in repeater, which is just handy for, not having to. Oh, that's not going to work. Oh, something else super important. I've run into this in the past. You may not think about it. A proper web request has a new line, basically a carriage return and a new line at the end of it. So if you do what I did, which is instinctually get rid of white space, it'll just hang there and eventually come back with a malformed request. So we do a go now, and here we go. So we can take a look at this, and if you notice, it looks like some kind of bank website, right? Which is clear from the name of it. Something I should have been doing this whole time. GoBuster. So I'm on VIP, the VIP servers. So I crank mine up to 50. You can probably do 10 if you're not on VIP, where there's more, where there's more activity. The rule when you're in a shared lab like this is don't bring the box to its knees. It's just be a good citizen. But since on VIP, I think there's 3 people or 4 people ever on the VIP VPN that I'm on typically. Another good reason to toss them a few bucks and get in the VIP groups. But I turned mine up to 50 just to make things go a little bit faster. And then we're going to do the word list is user share word lists. And we're going to use the dirbuster. It's medium, right? Is it directory list? Oop, helps if you spell directory right. List 2.3 medium, and we're going to. We don't need to output this to a file, but you can, you can output it to a file as well. And URL is going to be. There's something that we need to do first. So because we have a set. A domain that we need to use, and as far as I know, there's no easy way to set a host header in GoBuster. We can actually just do something simple and set our DNS to their DNS, or we can go into hosts. Oops. So there's two things we can do here. In order for this command to work, we can do HTTP. And what that will do, since we're actually going to bank.htb, it'll put that into the host header, and we don't have to worry about the host header stuff. The way to make this work, we can do a couple things. One is we can do etc hosts. And it's actually already there, so that would have worked. Or we could like vi etc resolve.conf. And we can put that name server in there as well, and then just use their name servers. So host is an easier, more temporary way to do things. It'll actually supersede DNS. So this is another thing you'll see some malware do. I don't know if it's as popular as it used to be, because now it's kind of a known thing, and endpoint protection looks for this. But you can actually put stuff in your host file. It'll supersede DNS, and it'll allow you to kind of do like a cheap DNS poison if you have some write access to the box. But now that that was already set up, we'll go ahead and run this. And I saw a question, so let's see. Let me catch up. 2 questions. Excuse me. What is and this is from Vincent. Man, I'm gonna mess this up, and I apologize. Sigurzi? Hopefully. I'm not sure how SGH is supposed to go together. 2 questions. What is the most successful way you've gained access to a machine? And secondly, is there a way to redirect HSTS sites? I've tried SSL strip, but that doesn't work anymore. So the most successful way to gain access to the box is just persistence. Yeah, it's persistence. You just gotta work at it. You enumerate and Google stuff and enumerate and Google stuff. I mean, some places, the easiest way, of course, is if they have some, really bad vulnerability, like, oh wait, I forgot, this isn't gonna work. So we want to get these, so we're gonna F to force the slashes, and then we're going to X, and we want PHP because it's a PHP site. Generally, I'll also do like .js and HTML and all that stuff. That's just going to make this take longer, and I don't necessarily want it to take longer. So yeah, it's persistence and methodology. It's really you have to look at things, look at what's going on, and understand why they're going on and what they mean. So for instance, this one, we'll kind of look at it in a minute, but there's no silver bullet. The days of just SQL map popping shells on half the internet are gone now. You'll still run into that occasionally, but it's really not that common. You really have to know how sites are working and why they're doing what they're doing to be able to take advantage of logic flaws and stuff like that. Rook or chat, do you know if HTTP's VMs are on Docker instances? I believe they're Docker. Oh, James answers. Yeah, or the challenges are on Docker. I would imagine they're Docker. Or some containerization. I can't imagine a world where like large-scale CTFs like this aren't using containers. And then on a Discord, tunes into Rook. Hey, wait a second, that's my computer. Yeah, so if you ever tune into my channel and I'm on your computer, what's up? Let's see. All right. Okay, so we got what we needed. We could let this go longer, and I think we'd see some more stuff, but this is really what we need. So we've got an index, we've got a support, we've got a login, assets, and logout. So from here, we can kind of check out what these different things do, right? So we've got a login, .php. And so we can take a look at this. Sometimes a real cheap way to do things is they'll have like a password listed in their login page, but there's nothing here for that. We can, see if they're real dumb and put in like do SQL map or I'm sorry, like SQL injection or try admin or things like that. But we're not going to do that right now. We're going to kind of keep looking at how the rest of the page works, as we were just mentioning. So the next one on the list is support.php. And so if you see here, there appears to be some sort of file upload. Now, file upload is one of the huge like red flags, warning signs, like, okay, something fishy is going on here. This is probably going to go poorly for the website. So we can kind of do some raw stuff. We can build our own. Oops, we got a little ahead of ourselves there. We could from the code, we could build our own post request. Either through curl or here in Burp or whatever we wanted to do. But I wanted to show something that I saw in IPsec's video when I was watching it to see what I missed. You can actually, within Burp, and this is fun, you can, on the fly, rewrite parts of the web requests and web response. So make sure I don't still have it in here. No, I was using Burp Pro last night. Cool. So here we want to, oh wait, sorry. So we want to go into we want to go into the main site. So since we have DNS set up and working, we can go to bank. And when you notice, when we go to /, we end up at login, right? And this is something that I skipped right by when I was playing last night for a while, and I didn't actually even know this was a thing until I watched IPsec's videos. But when you go here, if you take a look at the response, I just skipped right down to the code, right, and started looking at the code. I'm like, oh, this is cool. If you notice, this is a 302. Which is going to redirect to the location specified, which in this case is login.php. Burp doesn't automatically follow redirects. It shows you what you wanted to see, and if you want to follow the redirect later, you can. I didn't notice that forever, so I actually went through this entire box without realizing that this redirect existed. I don't think, from IPsec's video, I know for a fact this was not intended, but at the time I was like, wow, this seems like a really weird way to do these things. So when you get here, it's going to auto redirect you over and over and over again, right? Well, what happens if we go in here and we rewrite the response? So we rewrite a response header, and we want to match everything that's 3.1 or 2. So 3.01 or 3.2. What's the found? So actually, I think we need to get this whole thing right. So edit. We want to replace this with, and this is a little bit of regex. We just want any 3.01 or 3.02, any kind of redirect, right? Why is this here? Go away. Why? Okay, and we want to replace this with HTTP 1.1 200. Okay, it's a regex match for this. So now if we go to, oops, this is cached, so of course it's doing that. But if we go to like index.php, oh, do we have to have intercept on? I don't think we have to have intercept on. Let's not do this because I think they're all just 302s. Oop. Why? So we should be getting... Oh. Oh, no. IPsec to the rescue. Yeah, I forgot to change this response header. Hey, IPsec, welcome. I learned this trick from you, so I'm glad you're here. Cool. So now this should work. Okay. And if you notice, now we're actually starting to get what we expect here. So if we go to support, and then we have this support page. So we can do a few things. So we go foo and bar, and so if we do, let's see here. Let's make ourselves a little shell. So we'll go vi shell.php, and it's going to be PHP, and we'll do exec if I recall, I end up always having to look this up, but if I recall, that's going to work. Or at least it'll be close enough to show us what's going on here. So we're going to go ahead and upload this, and we'll submit. And it gets mad at us. It says, you can't upload this file. You can only upload images. Okay, so we'll just go back to this because it starts messing up the thing, but we'll do foobar again. And this time we'll just copy shell.php to shell.jpg. And we'll upload that. And everything's groovy. So if we click here, we'll see that shell.jpg is there, and we click, and it says the image can't be displayed, blah, blah, blah. And if we look, we can actually, so if we look at the source, yeah, it can't be displayed because of errors. So we're kind of at a dead end here. There's some other stuff that we can do. There's some stuff we can do there. I've seen some machines in the past that where you can trick it into trying to interpret the PHP, but this one doesn't seem to be that way. However, if you remember earlier, I said that, oops, you're seeing some spoilers here. When I was kind of looking through the code to see how the page worked, I was scrolling down here, and this comment popped out at me, and it says, I added the file extension HTB to execute PHP for debugging purposes only. So if we copy shell.php to shell.htb, then we should be able to upload this. Do bar foo, and we'll upload this shell. And we go here, and if we do cmd equals oh, I messed up our shell. Of course I did, because I always do that. cmd or php shell one-liner. Dutch Ghost says, can't you write the JPEG header to a file while the rest of the file is in the PHP code? Yes, you can, but the server itself, and I went through some of that, but the server itself still doesn't interpret the PHP. It's because since it's not displayed in a PHP page, I don't know. I couldn't get it to work. I guess we'll say we can give it a shot. But I literally did that last night, and I couldn't get it to work. This one, though, we'll use this. So vi shell.htb. Oop. Oh my God. Vim, stop it. There. Now we'll upload this. Yeah, it didn't work like at all. I tried. I did that with JPEGs. I did that with GIFs and PNGs, and none of it worked for me. So shell PHP. We'll choose the shell.htb. Submit. And oh, it's using E for some reason. ID. Hey, there we go. Okay, now it's working. Cool. So, as always, I mess up the PHP shell. This is why I usually just have other people generate it for me. So we're going to set up a listener here. Use NLP, say 9090. And here we're going to say nce bin bash 10 10 14 16 90 90. Do ID here. Cool. Yeah, so it checks the extension. So it doesn't let you do the .php.jpg either. You can do PHP JPG, but it doesn't work the other way around. The way that typically works, like IPsec says, is you have to do like the .jpg.php, and sometimes it just looks for JPG in the file name. It doesn't require it to end in that, and that's how you get that style of exploit to work. But so we're gonna turn our shell into magic. We're gonna turn our netcat shell into an actual TTY. So pty.spawn bin bash, and we're going to back out. We're going to tty raw echo. Whoops. Is it raw tty? Oh, damn it. This is another one that I always forget. STTY, Plushum, thank you. See, and this is why you always have reference in front of you, or in my case, a chat. Chats are helpful. And then we just foreground. So now we have our shell. So this is a pretty underwhelming privesc for me. I liked the TZ asks how I'm splitting my terminals. It's not Terminator, it's tmux. So Terminator, I think, is more, it uses some like mouse commands and stuff like that, can use mouse commands. Tmux is all command line. So IPsec, like I said earlier in the video, IPsec has a really good video for tmux use, and I'll make sure it's in the description because it comes up. I get the question all the time, and tmux is amazing. So anyways, this privesc is pretty boring. So I'm going to show you the way that I did the privesc, and I'll show you the correct way to do the privesc, if there is such a thing in this case. But so here I kind of looked around. First thing I did was actually look at the access file, htaccess, to see if there was some other secret parts of the site I wasn't supposed to know about. There is not. Dutch Ghost says Control B % and Control B double quote splits the screens. That is accurate. Another thing is you can Control B C to create a new window. So for instance, down here you can kind of see that I have a couple different like tabs, I guess you could think of them. So I'll unzoom this. So I have 2 frames here, and then I actually have a whole nother Control N switches between the tabs. I have a whole nother window here, so I can, monitor my VPN stuff if I want. So that's a quick intro to tmux, but IPsec video is much better. So I kind of like CD, I kind of back out of directories just to kind of see how the application works, if there's anything I missed. There's a bank reports .txt. So here, I guess, is the login information that we're supposed to use to get into the web app that we totally bypassed completely. There was also this balance transfer thing, and this is what I found out from watching IPsec videos. But in here is just a crap ton of these account files, and so we can cat this, and you see how these are all encrypted. I guess one of these isn't a 584 length file, or 585, whatever, and so that one has an unencrypted version, and that's the stuff we find here, this bank reports. So we bypass that completely. Whatever. I guess the other method for gaining a foothold I didn't like at all. I really liked the foothold method of this box until I realized that it was unintentional. So there's some holy wars going on in here saying that Control A is a better way to do it. It's fine. For people that are used to screen, Control A is certainly the way to go, because that's how screen works, is it uses Control A as its prefix. IPsec says that he uses Control A for that reason, as well as if he's SSH'd into a box that also is running tmux, he can use Control B to control his remote session and Control A to control his local session, which is the best reason I've heard to do it. For me, I'm just used to Control B, so it'll stay that way. Anyway, so, I kind of looked around here. I looked into include because that usually has some good sensitive stuff. And I found this user.php. And so I found this super secret or super secure password. I was like, maybe this does something. So I did MySQL user root p password. Oops. Oh, right. So here's a cool thing about the Linux command line. The exclamation point means something. So in order to quote out the exclamation point, double quotes will not quote out the exclamation point. You have to use single quotes. So if you encapsulate that in single quotes, it'll ignore the exclamation points as a secret or as a control character. So from here, you can, and we'll do help, you can run system commands in MySQL. So this is something that I've run into in some boot to roots and, capture the flags and stuff. And I'll show you why this won't work in a minute, but since I saw the SQL credentials, it was the first thing I tried. You can run a system command. So if you just do this, this isn't me exiting. This is actually a bash shell that's running via the MySQL shell. But if you run ID, we're still just running as dub data, right? So we exit out of this. We're back in MySQL. We'll exit out. But if you'll notice, MySQL isn't running as root. Generally, that MySQL escape will only work, or will more often work, if it's running as root, not as MySQL. If you look at, let's see, maybe I'm going off the rails a little bit here. There's a MySQL control script called like MySQL safe or something like that generally does that kind of safe running of MySQL for you. I'm surprised it's not running here, and even more surprised that since it's not running, that as privesc didn't work. But I don't know. Nothing. You can't take anything about this box for granted. So, anyways, that didn't work. So I kind of backed out again. Looked through some of this stuff, but none of it was too interesting. The credentials that I found, the SQL credentials, were the most interesting thing I found. Went into HTML, but really that's just that Ubuntu box or Ubuntu splash page we found. So I backed out again into var. And generally the reason I go back this far is because like log and spool can all have interesting stuff in it. You can find, I've privesced into boxes because I go into auth log and I see a failed login that's like, spring 2018. And then immediately after that, I see a successful login from user admin. I'm like, what happened there? I bet he typed his password into the user prompt instead of the password prompt. So I like to check the logs. I like to check spool because it can have mail in it, can have cron stuff in it. But what caught my eye here is I saw a hack in an HTTP directory. So I went into it. And mind you, none of this is like hardcore enumeration. I haven't run any scripts yet. I haven't uploaded len-enum or any of the privesc checkers or anything like that. I'm still just trying to get a feel for the box. This is taking a while because I'm explaining it as I go, but when I'm doing this is like 5 minutes. This is me just kind of seeing what's around and exploring and kind of getting a feel for what's where and who uses what. And so I see this and I look, and I see emergency and I see a bin. So I go into bin and then it's another emergency. And I was like, cool, this is going to be a buffer overflow challenge. And I got really excited because I just took the GXPin test, and I'm not feeling super great about buffer overflows, but I'm feeling great about getting more comfortable with them. And so I was like, sweet, let's run this. So I run it and I get I get the freaking root prompt, and I was like, wait, is that it? Yes, that's it. I'm literally root right now. So the proper way you're supposed to do it is actually this emergency thing is a wrapper. So you can run emergency, and it says, are you sure? And it's like, yes, I'm sure. And then you get into the root shell. So this was such a weird way to do it that I started second guessing myself. I saw this, and I was like, wait, is this on every Hack the Box box? Like, is this a debug thing that's supposed to be hidden before it gets launched or something? So I went back into a couple Hack the Box boxes and couldn't find anything. And I was like, okay, well, this is a retired box. I'm sure IppSec has a video on it. So I start watching his video, and sure as heck, this is what it's supposed to be. And that's where I ended up finding about the other method to gain the foothold. This was super underwhelming. So, for instance, generally you kind of want something like this not so blatantly labeled, for a CTF. And this is the way it works. So we'll go back into var. Let's see, and it's www, and then it's bank rent. Yeah. And then we came in through uploads. Okay, so this is where we came in at, right? Like it won't clear because I'm not, because I don't have it. It doesn't matter. So this is where we started, okay? So I see somebody say, let's see, Dutch asked, what about len-enum sh? That's something I very quickly get on a box I have shell on. So I don't disagree. And I'll explain why in a minute. So len-enum and privesc checker and a lot of those enumeration tools can easily give you all the information you need to privesc and get higher privileges. They also run a lot of stuff on the box, and it's doubtful unless you're in a really, really mature environment that will set off flags, but it's running a lot, and you don't necessarily need all of that information, right? You can do a couple quick things first to gain a little bit of information, and 75% of the time that gives me a privesc without actually having to transfer a script onto the box and run a ton of enumeration commands and then sift through all of the output. So Plushum says the first thing they do is sudo -l, and that's actually the first thing I do as well. Because that number one is probably going to get you something good. The difference is it usually only helps if you're an actual user. If you're www, www almost never has sudo access. It's crazy. If I privesc from www to a standard user, then I would absolutely run a sudo -l to see what sudo privileges that user has. I suppose it's possible that somebody gave www's sudo access, but if you cat etc password, and actually we'll do this, and then we'll grep www data. If you notice, they're not even allowed to actually log in, right? They can't log in from a terminal or log in through SSH or anything like that. We are just abusing the system to even have a shell on this box. So giving them sudo access isn't going to do anything. But I agree with you, Plishum. Sudo -l from a standard user, 100% the first thing I do. The next thing you do is you can like cat etc password, right? Just to kind of see if maybe there's somebody with like weird, like if they're still using, standard Linux permission or old Linux authentication style where the password is hashed in the password file. Almost never happens. But another thing you can see is like if there's other users that have, the user group 0 or, anything funky. The next thing I typically do after sudo -l is a find command. And I start from the root directory. I want perm, is it perms? I think it's perms. 4000. And this is basically looking for any SUID binary on the box. And the other thing I want is I want to see set user ID 4000. Yeah. And then we're going to dev null. And this is just saying, because when you're a non-root user, you're not going to have access to a ton of directories. You're just going to get a huge spam of like, these files are not accessible. So we're just taking all of that error output and throwing it into dev null, not devin null, dev null. So we run this. Maybe it's not perms. What's happening here? Yeah, here we go. It's not perms, it's perm. So, and then here you can kind of see there's like the standard, people that are standard results that you'll find, like password has to be run as root because it has to access the shadow file. It's, sudo, of course, has to be a set UID application. So ping, a lot of people don't know this, but ping is a set UID program because it's got to set up a socket, SU, obviously. So there's a lot of like, usual suspects here, but this is also how you find that var HTTP. So if you find something in var, or you find something in temp, or something in somebody's home directory, those are pretty clear indications that they can be abused. They might not always be abusable, but it's at least in a CTF, it's a pretty clear indication. One of the other things was it this box that I think I saw it on. So if we so another thing we have, and I don't know if this is intentional or not, but this is crazy, this is another path, and I saw this on IPSEC's video. We have write permission to etc password. And if we have write permission to etc password, we can create a new user that has a user ID of 0 or a group ID of 0, and write that out. We can add, I mentioned earlier that old Linux stuff used to have the passwords in etc password. That's why it's called etc password, before shadow was a thing. And so you can actually put a password in the old format into etc password, and that will supersede etc shadow. And excuse me. And you can just SSH in that way, or you can SU with that password or whatever you want to do. So that's another way to do it. All in all, this box, it whether intentionally or unintentionally, has a bunch of holes that aren't the apparently intended way of doing things, which is good and bad, right? It's good because you have more stuff to explore, but if none of this was intentional, then that's real bad, because if you're doing security like this, you need to know why you're doing what you're doing, right? So like, for instance, the 302 redirects are not a security compensation. They're not going to prevent people from visiting pages without logging in. having etc password rewrite to everyone is really bad. And I'll show you how we find this too. So maybe it's not etc password that's important. Maybe it's some other thing. But we can do another find command. And old find didn't have this, but new find does. So we can do writable, which is just we want to be able to write to it. And we want it to be owned by user root. And then, of course, we're going to do our to dev null here. Excuse me. And so these are all and generally I do like grep v proc, and I'll also grep vdev typically. And of course, you can combine these two greps, but whatever. And so here's all of the things that are owned by root and are writable by us. So I'm not sure if that's good. That's actually kind of terrifying. Having any users and any user, including dub data, being able to write AppArmor stuff can't be good. I'm not even that familiar with AppArmor, and that can't be good. etc password, of course, does not belong here. In general, you just don't want a lot of files that are owned by root writable by everyone else, because if root runs an application or uses a config file or something that we're able to tamper with, then that could be a privesc as well. So let's see, let's catch up on chat. So what are the most common SUID things you look for using setuid? So it's not common things that I look for so much as things that are not common. So like I said, when I went through this list, right, there are common things that you just kind of see everywhere, and I don't have a list. I should totally have a list, but I don't have a list of the common things that I see. But I've been a Linux admin for a long time, so I just kind of get used to seeing stuff like this. But really, it's the stuff in var, stuff in user share is probably another good place to kind of look at stuff. Things in temp, things in home directories, stuff like that. Anything that is clearly not a system setuid binary, something that was created by a user or something custom is where I'll start looking. Once I kind of exhaust this stuff, once I find, like the setuid stuff, or I find the, world writable stuff, after that, then I'll start thinking about some enumeration scripts to kind of help me out. And then I'll let those run while I maybe poke around at some other stuff. But anyways, so that's that. I'm not actually going to cat the files for you. You can come back through and follow along and cat the files for yourself. But hopefully some people learned some stuff. I learned some neat things about Nmap that I didn't know before. Cool. Hope to see you all soon.